In this video, LO1, we are going to talk about the things that all living things share. There are 8 characteristics of life, and they all make something alive. First, all living things are based on a universal genetic code. This is basically DNA. All living things store the information needed to grow, live, and reproduce in this molecule. That's what DNA looks like. DNA is then copied and then passed on to offspring. Therefore, that genetic information, that coding, those instructions are passed on and on through generations. For example, the way that a tree grows, what it looks like, its form, and its structure is determined by the information in its DNA. That's what makes a birch tree different from an oak tree. They have slightly different DNA. Number 2, all living things grow and develop. During development, a fertilized egg divides again and again and again until eventually you have enough cells to build up an organism. As the cells continue to divide, they differentiate. They get different jobs and become specialized to build up an organism. For example, you have a seed that grows up into a plant. Number 3, all living things respond to stimuli in their environment. A stimulus is something to which an organism responds. So if I were to come around and poke you right now, that would be a stimulus and you would respond to it. If the room suddenly got very, very cold, that would be a stimulus. If your stomach starts grumbling, that's a stimulus. All of these things are things that you react to, you respond to. All things that are considered alive detect and respond to stimuli. For example, a plant gets eaten by a caterpillar, a stimulus, and secretes a chemical as a response. That chemical might make the plant taste bad, so then the caterpillar stops eating it. Think also of a Venus flytrap. You touch it, stimulus, and it closes, response. Remember, these are things that, in order to be considered alive, an organism needs to meet all of these criteria. So, number 4, in order to be considered alive, something needs to be able to reproduce. Asexual reproduction is when one organism essentially makes a clone of itself, and those are usually smaller organisms like bacteria and one-celled things, although there are some larger organisms that can do this. Sexual reproduction is when you have 2 organisms that donate a cell, so an egg and a sperm, which unite and make a unique new organism. For example, a flower is pollinated, that creates seeds. The 5th thing that all living things share is this idea called homeostasis. Homeostasis means you have balance inside your body. Your internal environment is kept stable, even if things are changing around you. So if you get cold, what are you going to do? You're going to shiver. That will help warm you up to bring your body temperature back into balance. If your body is low on oxygen, think you're working out and you're depleting your oxygen, you're going to breathe in. You're going to breathe more to bring that balance back. If a dog gets too hot, what does it do to maintain homeostasis? It pants. That helps cool it down. If a lizard is cold, a lizard is a cold-blooded animal, so it can't warm itself up like we do. What does it do? It goes and lays in the sun. Homeostasis. Balance. The 6th thing that all living things do is obtain and use energy. And we need energy, any living thing needs energy, to grow, develop, reproduce, just do daily functions. Your metabolism is a word that basically describes any chemical reaction that allows an organism to build up or break down materials. So you usually hear it in terms of your metabolism. Some people say, oh, I have a slow metabolism and that's why I'm overweight. So we're looking at cell respiration, how your body digests food and uses those digested materials to make energy, that sort of thing. Plants do that, cell respiration, plus photosynthesis. They use sunlight to make sugar. That is part of metabolism as well. So an example here, photosynthesis occurs in the leaves of a plant to make sugar, which is used in cell respiration to make energy. Number 7, in order to be considered alive, something needs to be made out of at least one cell. And a cell is the smallest thing that is considered alive. So you can have an organism that is only one cell big, and it's still alive. But many of the things that we see around us are multicellular. Actually, everything you see around you is multicellular. In order to be seen, if it's only one cell, you'll need a microscope. Now, cells, even though they're simple in the fact that it's the smallest thing that's considered alive, they're actually quite complex and very organized, and we'll look at those in the next unit. For example, a branch of an apple tree is made out of millions of cells. And lastly, the last thing to be considered alive. As a group, living things evolve. And by evolve, I mean change over time. Now, an individual doesn't evolve, and when we get to evolution, we'll talk about this more. You as one person cannot evolve. It happens through populations over time. And if you go back in history, evolutionary change links all forms of life to a common ancestor or common origin over 3.5 billion years ago. An example here would just basically be fossils. You can look at fossils and see evidence of species and how they have changed over time. So, I cannot stress this enough. In order to be considered alive, something must meet all 8 criteria. And as part of your assignment, what you're going to do, first you'll have a worksheet that kind of goes through these things a little bit more. And then for the Justification of Life conference, you're going to pick something that is alive. So you couldn't pick a rock, because a rock is not alive. You need to Google some information about it, pick 5 of these 8 characteristics, and tell me, what does that organism do? Or how is its body, if it's big enough, set up to meet these criteria? You're going to prove to me that it's alive using this information. So, that's LO1, What is Alive, talking about the 8 things that all living things share. Refer to your note packet to see what's next. Grab the worksheet from the crate. If you have any questions, see me.